I have not stopped driving for 9 hours. There is someone I keep seeing at every truck stop on this corridor. By the end of this, you will understand why I am calling you from the shoulder of I-80 with my engine running and my doors locked. I picked up this load in Des Moines at 4 in the afternoon. I am supposed to make Cleveland by 6 in the morning. I will not be making Cleveland. I am telling you this because I want at least one person to know what I saw before whatever happens next happens. My name is Ray. I have been driving long-haul freight for the same regional company for 26 years. The load was nothing special. 42,000 pounds of paper product on a dry van, sealed in Des Moines, drop in Cleveland by 6. The dispatcher who handed me the bills was a kid named Trent, maybe 23, who still calls me sir. I pre-tripped the rig at 3:40 in the afternoon, walked around it the way I have walked around it for 26 years. Tires, lights, kingpin, glad hands, climbed up and checked the fifth wheel jaws were locked tight on the trailer pin, cranked the landing gear up, did the pull test, logged it. I am not telling you any of this because it matters. I am telling you because I want you to understand that I am not the kind of man who imagines things. I do not drink on the road. I have not had a moving violation since 2011. I take my 10 hours off and I run my 11 on, and I log it honest, even when the dispatcher wishes I would not. Cleveland by 6 in the morning is 14 hours away if you push it. The legal way to do it is one long run, one good break, and a short final leg. The way it actually gets done when the load is hot is you run it harder than the book says, and you sleep less than you should. I pulled out of the Des Moines yard at 4:08, got on I-80 eastbound at the merge by West Mitchellville. By 5 o'clock, the sun was already down behind me, and the cab was full of that gray light that is not day and not night. The first stop was the Iowa 80 in Walcott. Iowa 80 calls itself the world's largest truck stop, and it is not lying. It has a chrome shop and a movie theater and a dentist and a chapel. 800 parking spaces. On a Thursday night in late October, you will see 150 rigs lined up under the sodium lamps, all the same yellow, all running their reefers, all sounding like one long-held breath. I rolled in around 7:30, fueled up at Island 4. Diesel was $3.89 a gallon, which is a number I will never forget, because it is the last ordinary thing I noticed that night. Etiquette at a fuel island is simple. You pull up, you fuel, you pull forward to the apron, you go inside, you pay if you need to, you do your paperwork, you move out so the next driver can get in. You do not sit on the pumps, you do not eat dinner at the pumps, you do not nap at the pumps. It is one of the few unwritten rules left in this country, and it is enforced by everyone, every time. I pulled forward to the apron, set the brakes, killed the lights but left the engine running because the night was cold and I had a long way to go. Climbed down, stretched the small of my back, the way you have to stretch it after 4 hours in a Peterbilt seat. Walked toward the building. That is when I saw him for the first time. He was standing across the lot, maybe 200 feet from me, between a row of parked reefers and the back fence. The fence had a low cyclone gate, and beyond the gate there was a field that went black almost immediately. The lamps did not reach that far. He was a man, average height, average build, wearing a brown canvas core coat and a dark wool cap pulled down to the eyebrows. His hands were in his coat pockets. He was facing toward me, but I could not see his face under the cap, only the shape of a jaw and a nose, and the suggestion that his mouth was closed. He was not doing anything. He was not walking. He was not loading. He was not smoking. He was just standing there between the rigs, watching the lot. I noticed him the way you notice anyone in a parking lot at night. Some part of your animal brain logs every other person within line of sight and decides if they are a threat or not in about a second and a half. My brain looked at him and said, "Trucker on a break," waiting for his shower number to be called. Nothing. Moved on. I went inside, used the bathroom, got a coffee and a bag of pretzels, made small talk with the woman behind the counter, whose name I did not know but whose face I had seen 100 times. Paid, came out, got back in the truck. When I pulled out of the apron, I looked toward where he had been. He was gone. Of course he was gone. He had probably gotten in his own truck and left while I was paying. That's what people do. They are there, and then they are not there. That's normal. I pulled out of Iowa 80 at 7:53 and got back on I-80 eastbound. The road there is flat, and the cows are sparse. New Liberty, Stockton. The mile markers tick past like a metronome, and the sodium glow of Davenport starts to build on the horizon after about half an hour. I crossed the Mississippi at LeClaire just after 8:30. The river was black and wide under the bridge, and there was one barge moving south with 3 red lights along its spine, slow as a thought. By 10 o'clock I needed to stop again. I do not nap that early in a run. What I do is I pull off, I walk around, I get fresh coffee, I check my straps, I make the next 4 hours possible. The pilot in Davenport is right off exit 292, half a mile of frontage road, and on a Thursday night it's busy but not packed. I parked in the back row, where the long-nose hood trucks go, killed the lights, engine running, climbed down. I was 3 steps from the cab when I saw him again. He was at the far end of the row, maybe 60 feet from my driver door, same height, same build, same posture, hands in his pockets, head down just enough that the cap put his face into shadow. Different clothes, black jacket now, not brown, jeans, boots. I want to be very clear about what happened in my chest at that moment, because if I do not say it, I will be lying to you. It was not fear, not yet. It was a wrong kind of knowing, the kind of knowing where your body recognizes something before your brain has finished doing the math. My hand on the door handle stopped. My breath went into my throat and held there. I am a trucker. I do math in my head all day. I do it about fuel, about weights, about hours of service, about minutes to destination. The math I did right then went like this. Iowa 80 is in Walcott. The pilot in Davenport is about 31 miles east of Walcott. I left Walcott at 7:53. It is now 5 after 10. That is 2 hours and 12 minutes. In that time, I averaged about 63 miles an hour with one slow stretch through construction near Bettendorf. For a person on foot to cover 31 miles in 2 hours and 12 minutes, they would have to run more or less a 4-minute mile, the entire way, in the dark, along an interstate where you cannot be on foot. So they did not walk. For a person in a passenger car to be standing here, they would have had to leave Iowa 80 within a few minutes of when I left, beat me to Davenport, find the same row I would park in, and station themselves there, looking the way they were looking, doing nothing. They would also have had to know I was coming here. I did not know I was coming here. I picked the pilot because the line at Iowa 80's restroom had been long. The math did not work. The math did not work, and the man was standing there. I stood by my door for what I will guess was 30 seconds. I did not look away from him. He did not look away from me, as far as I could tell. He did not move. He did not adjust his weight from one foot to the other. He did not breathe in any way I could see. A truck 2 rows over started its engine, and the noise broke my paralysis. I went around to the front of my cab, where his sight line to me was blocked by the hood, and I leaned against the bumper for a minute and breathed. When I came back around, the lot was the same. He was gone. I told myself the obvious things. There are a lot of men. A lot of men wear cork coats. A lot of men wear wool caps. Truck stops are exactly the kind of place where a guy who looks like that, standing around with his hands in his pockets, is the median observation. He was probably someone different. He was probably just a guy. I did not believe it. I did believe it, in the way you can believe 2 contradictory things at the same time when you don't want to confront the other one. I went inside. I bought another coffee I did not need. I bought a Slim Jim. I bought a small flashlight from the rack by the register, which I told the cashier was for checking my straps, but which was really because the idea of walking back to my truck without one had become unbearable. I clipped the flashlight to my belt and walked back to the rig. The lot was full of drivers. None of them looked like him. None of them looked at me. I climbed up, locked the doors, and sat in my driver's seat for 10 minutes with the engine idling before I put it in gear. I told myself I was going to call my dispatcher. I did not. I told myself I was going to call my ex-wife. I did not. I put the truck in low gear and crawled out of the lot and got back on I-80 eastbound. For the next 2 hours I drove with the CB on. I never run the CB. Most of us don't anymore. The chatter you used to get on a Thursday night in the 80s is gone, replaced by Bluetooth headsets and dispatcher calls, and what is left on the CB is mostly silence and the occasional voice asking about a smoky at a mile marker. But that night I wanted human noise, and the CB was the cheapest source of it. I crossed into Illinois near the Quad Cities, through Geneseo and Anawan and a long, flat, dark stretch where there is nothing on either side of the road but corn stubble. The radio caught a Baptist preacher, and then a country station, and then a long stretch of nothing. The Flying J near Joliet was my 3rd stop. I did not need it for fuel. I needed it because I had been white-knuckling the wheel for 2 hours, and my forearms were starting to lock up. It was 12:43 in the morning when I pulled into Joliet. The lot was about 3/4 full. I parked, killed the lights, left the engine running, climbed down. I did not see him in the lot. I felt my whole chest unclench. I walked across the apron with the deliberate gait of a man who has decided that his earlier panic was foolish. I went inside. I used the men's room. I want to tell you about that bathroom because I think the detail matters. The Flying J in Joliet has a long bathroom with 7 urinals along the right wall and a row of stalls along the left. The lighting is fluorescent, the kind that makes you look slightly green in the mirror. The floor is white tile with grout that has gone gray. The whole room smells like the pink soap they use and the chemical they spray every 2 hours. There were 4 other men in there when I walked in, 2 at the sinks, 1 at a urinal at the far end, finishing up, and him at the urinal second from the door. I almost backed out. I am being honest with you. My instinct was to back out and use the other restroom, the one by the showers, and walk away from this. But I had been holding it since the bridge, and I was tired and I was angry, in a vague way that was easier to feel than the fear, and I thought, no, I am not going to let some guy in a parking lot push me around inside a public bathroom. So I walked up to the urinal next to him. He was wearing different clothes again. A gray hooded sweatshirt now, hood down, the wool cap still on, same brown work boots. He was standing in the position a man stands in at a urinal, one hand at his waist, looking straight ahead at the tile. He was not urinating. He was not pretending to. There was no posture of urgency, no rustle of clothing, no sound. He was just standing there, in the stance, looking at the tile, with his hands where they would have been if he were going. I did what I had come in to do, with my eyes fixed straight ahead, breathing through my mouth. The man at the far urinal flushed and walked past us and out the door. The men at the sinks finished and left. After about 30 seconds, it was him and me in that long green room with the buzzing of the lights overhead. He did not move. He did not turn his head. I could see in my peripheral vision that the angle of his cap was exactly the same as it had been in Iowa 80 and exactly the same as it had been in Davenport. I finished. I zipped. I stepped back into my left, which put me behind him and to his right, and I walked, not fast, to the sinks. I washed my hands. I did not look at the mirror, because the mirror would have shown me his back, and I did not want to see him from behind. I dried my hands. I walked out of the bathroom. In the corridor, I broke into something that was almost a jog. I went past the trucker's lounge, past the showers, past the chapel, out the side door into the lot. My truck was where I had left it. I climbed up, locked the doors, started moving before I had even put my seatbelt on. I drove for 40 miles before my hands stopped shaking. I-80 east of Joliet is bad road. The truckers call it the washboard. Old concrete slabs with expansion joints that hit the tires every 15 feet like a heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. On a normal night, you stop noticing it after 10 miles. That night, every thump went into my spine. I called my ex-wife from the hands-free at 1:50 in the morning. Her name is Diane. We were married for 19 years. We have a daughter, Megan, who is 22 and lives in Columbus. Diane and I split in 2021 for reasons that were mostly my fault and entirely about the road, and we are, against all odds, decent to each other now. She is a night nurse at a hospital in Cedar Rapids, and she takes calls at strange hours because of her schedule. I knew she would pick up. She picked up. Ray. Hey, Di, you at work? Just got home. What are you doing calling me at 2 in the morning? I did not know how to say it. I sat there with the wheel in one hand and the washboard going through me, and I tried to find the sentence and could not. Ray, you there? Yeah, I am here. What's wrong? I almost told her. I almost said, there is a man following me. I almost said, he is at every stop, and the distances do not work, and he was standing next to me in a bathroom not pissing. I heard the words in my head, and I heard how they would land in her ear, the wife of a trucker, a woman who has spent 20 years listening to me describe the long, flat dark, and I could not make myself say them. Nothing, I said. Long run, Cleveland by 6. Just wanted to hear a voice that knew my name. She was quiet for a moment. Are you okay to drive? I am okay to drive. You sound like you're not. I'm okay. There was another pause. In the pause, I heard her doing the thing she has always done, which is decide whether to push me or let me have my pride. She let me have my pride. Get some sleep when you can, Ray. Text me when you're in Cleveland. I will. Be safe. I will. I hung up. I drove for another 10 miles before I let myself cry, and I cried in the way men my age cry, which is one bad shudder in the chest and a wet sleeve, and then it was over. I had decided by the time I crossed into Indiana that I was going to do two things. I was going to sleep for 4 hours in the sleeper at the next stop because I could feel my reaction time getting bad, and I was going to keep the cab doors locked while I slept and the flashlight by the bunk and the curtains drawn tight. The next stop was the TA in Lake Station. The TA in Lake Station, Indiana sits at exit 15 off I-80, right where the interstate funnels you toward Chicago's south side. It is not a pretty truck stop. The pavement is patched. The lot is laid out wrong. You enter through one driveway and you exit through another, and the two are not connected by anything sensible. But it is open and it has parking, and at 3 in the morning on a Friday it was about half full. I parked in the back, away from the fuel islands where the long state trucks go. Killed the engine for the first time all night, set the parking brake, sat there for a minute listening to the air bleed out of the system, the hiss of the brake cans, the click of the cab cooling. I climbed back into the sleeper. The sleeper of my Peterbilt is a high roof, about 7 feet long and 3 feet deep, with a bunk along the back wall and storage cubbies built into the front. There is a curtain you can pull across the back of the cab to separate the sleeper from the driver's seat. There is a small window high up on the passenger side. There is a small window high up on the driver's side. Both have curtains. There are 4 locking doors on the truck total. Driver, passenger, and the 2 compartment doors under the bunk. I locked everything. I drew the curtain. I put the flashlight on the bunk next to my hip. I lay down in my clothes with my boots on, which I do not normally do. I set an alarm for 4 hours. I went to sleep faster than I thought I would. The body, when it has been driving and afraid for that long, will take the first chance you give it. I dreamed of nothing. My alarm did not wake me. What woke me was the cab moving. It was a small movement, the kind a truck makes when somebody puts their weight against the side of the cab, a driver climbing the fuel tank step, a mechanic checking the wheel chocks. Not a slam, not a hit, a lean. I was awake instantly. Every part of me was awake. I lay there in the dark of the sleeper and listened. Outside I could hear the low rumble of a reefer 2 trucks over and somebody's air horn way out by the on-ramp. Inside I could hear my own pulse and nothing else. The cab moved again, the same lean, from the passenger side this time, like someone had stepped back and then stepped forward again to look at something up high. I reached for the flashlight. I did not turn it on. I lay there with my thumb on the switch. The cab settled. Whatever weight had been against the passenger side was gone. I waited a long minute, then another. I sat up very slowly on the bunk. I pulled the corner of the sleeper curtain back about an inch and looked through into the driver's compartment. The dash readout said 3:57 in the morning. I had been asleep for 40 minutes. I crawled forward into the driver's seat without standing up. From there I could see out the windshield and out the driver's window. The lot looked the same, rows of rigs, all running, all yellow under the lamps. Nobody walking, nobody near my truck on the driver's side. I leaned across the engine cover and pulled the passenger curtain back about an inch with one finger. He was leaning against the passenger side of the cab. His shoulder was against the door. His face was tilted up toward the high window of the sleeper, the one I had drawn the curtain on, the one I had been sleeping behind. He was looking up at it. His arms were down at his sides now, not in his pockets. He was still wearing the gray hooded sweatshirt and the wool cap. From this angle I could see for the first time a little of his face. His mouth was open, not wide, just open. About the way your mouth is open when you are concentrating on a small task. His eyes I could not see, because the angle of the cap put them in shadow. But his mouth was open and slightly slack, and his chin was raised, and he was looking up at the window I had been sleeping behind. I did not scream. I want to give myself credit for that, because it was the closest I have come to screaming in my adult life. I let the curtain go. I crawled backwards into the driver's seat. I started the engine. When the engine turned over, he did not flinch. I watched him in the side mirror as I released the parking brake. He did not look at me. He did not move away from the cab. He kept his face tilted up at the sleeper window even as I started to roll forward. When the truck moved out from under his shoulder, he stayed in the same posture, leaning against air until I had pulled 3 feet ahead. Then he straightened up, lowered his chin, and turned his head to watch me leave. I did not look back. I drove out of the TA at 4:03 in the morning with my hands at 10 and 2 and a taste in my mouth like copper. I got back on I-80 eastbound and I told myself I was not going to stop again. About 20 minutes later, somewhere past Portage, the CB crackled. I had forgotten it was on. I had turned it on hours ago at Iowa 80 and left it on, and it had been making the occasional small noise the whole time, and I had stopped registering it. Now a voice came through, and the voice was talking to nobody in particular, and it was talking about him. Anybody else seeing this guy? The voice was middle-aged, tired. From the cadence, I would guess he was a fleet driver, maybe in his 50s. The kind of man who has run the same routes long enough that he no longer needs to look at signs. I picked up the handset. I held it. I did not key it. Another voice came back. Younger. Seeing what? Guy at the Petro at Burns Harbor. Brown coat, just standing there. A long pause. A third voice with a southern accent. I saw a guy like that at the Pilot in South Holland about an hour ago. Pause. The first voice again. Yeah, he was at the Loves in Hammond too, earlier. I thought I was losing my mind. Pause. The second voice. Did he say anything to you? The first voice. No, didn't move, just looked. I keyed the handset. I had to clear my throat twice before my voice would work. Iowa 80, I said. Davenport Pilot, Joliet J, TA Lake Station. Same guy, different clothes. A long pause on the channel. The first voice came back. Quieter now. What's your 20, driver? East of Portage on 80. Heading for Cleveland. Yeah, he said. Stay sharp. The southern voice came back. Anybody know what he wants? Nobody answered. The channel went quiet. I drove for another 5 minutes without anyone saying anything, and then somebody asked about a Smoky near the Ohio line, and the channel went back to being a normal CB on a normal night, and I felt, for the first time since Davenport, that I was not crazy. It is hard to explain what that did to me. The fear did not go away. The fear got worse, because now the thing I was afraid of was confirmed by other men. Men I did not know and would never meet. Men who were on the same dark stretch of road and seeing the same thing. But underneath the fear there was a small relief, the relief of not being alone inside my own head, and that small relief was enough to keep me driving. I crossed into Ohio just before 5 in the morning. The next stop was a Sunoco in Maumee, just off exit 64. It is not a proper truck stop. It is a gas station with a long lot and 4 big rig pumps along the back. The kind of place you stop when you need fuel and nothing else. I needed fuel. I had pushed the truck harder than I should have for the last 100 miles, and the gauge was below a quarter. I pulled into the Big Rig Island around 5:30. There were 3 other trucks at the pumps, a green Volvo at Island 1, a red Kenworth at Island 2, a white day cab at Island 3. I took Island 4. I started fueling. I did not get down from the cab. I leaned out of the driver's window and ran the pump from up there, which is something most of us do not do, but I was not getting off that truck unless I had to. That is when I saw him for the 5th time. He was 3 rigs over, at Island 1, climbing the step of the green Volvo. The driver of the Volvo was inside paying. The cab door of the Volvo was unlocked. He opened it. He climbed up into the passenger seat. He sat down. He pulled the door shut behind him. He did not look at me. I sat in my cab with the diesel pump still running and I watched. About a minute later, the driver of the Volvo came out of the store with a styrofoam coffee cup. He climbed up into his own driver's seat. He did not appear to look over at the passenger seat, or if he did not react to what was sitting in it. He started his engine. He pulled out of the apron. He turned out of the lot and got on the on-ramp and rolled east on I-80. I watched the Volvo's brake lights for as long as I could. I want to tell you what I felt at that moment, and the closest I can get is this. I felt the way a man feels when he sees with his own eyes a thing his brain is not built to file. There was no slot in me for what I had just seen. I sat in my cab with my hand on the pump trigger, and I made small, involuntary sounds in my throat for about a minute, and I did not know I was making them until I noticed I was. My pump clicked off. I put the nozzle back on the hook. I started to pull forward toward the apron, and then I looked in my rear view. He was in the lot again, walking toward me, not fast, not slow, the same stride a man uses when he's going somewhere he knows. He was alone. The Volvo was already on the highway. He could not have been in 2 places. He was in 2 places. He had been in the Volvo, and now he was here. I dropped the truck into gear and pulled out of the apron without doing my paperwork. I left the receipt printing at the pump. I made the turn out of the Sunoco wide and ugly, and I was on the on-ramp inside of a minute, gunning a fully loaded Peterbilt up to highway speed in a way you are not supposed to. In the side mirror as I came up the ramp, I saw him standing in the lot where my truck had been. His hands were back in his pockets. I drove east on I-80 with the speedometer at 73 and the engine working hard. The sun was starting to come up behind me. The sky over Ohio was a flat pink, the kind of pink that has no warmth in it. The mile markers ticked. Toledo, then the suburbs of Toledo, then the long flat stretch where the lake is to your left and the corn is to your right, and there is nothing else for 50 miles. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I could not make them stop. I tried gripping harder, and that did not help. I tried gripping looser, and that did not help. My right hand was bad enough that I started to worry about my ability to downshift if something happened. My left hand was not much better. About 40 miles east of Maumee, I started to drift. I came back into my lane hard enough to spill the cold coffee in the cup holder. I pulled onto the shoulder. This is where I am now. I'm on the shoulder of I-80 about 20 miles short of Cleveland. The sun has been up for maybe 20 minutes. The traffic has picked up and there is a steady stream of four-wheelers and the occasional rig going past me in the right lane. And every one of them sets the cab rocking when they pass close. I have my engine running because I do not want him to think the truck is empty. I have my doors locked. I have my hazards on. I have my CB off because I do not want to hear anyone else say his name. I dialed Diane back 20 minutes ago. She picked up on the second ring. She did not say hello. She said, "Ray, what is going on?" I told her everything. I told her about Iowa 80 and Davenport and the bathroom in Joliet and the lien on the sleeper at Lake Station and the man in the Volvo at Maumee and the man on the lot behind the man in the Volvo. I told her about the CB. I told her about my hands. I told her I had pulled over because I was not safe to drive, but that was not the only reason. She did not interrupt me. She is good like that. She let me talk it all out, and the only sound she made for about 6 minutes was the occasional small breath, the kind a person makes when they are taking something in carefully. When I was done, she said, "Ray, where are you exactly?" I-80, past Sandusky, before the Cleveland split. Mile marker, 144. I want you to stay there. I'm going to call Megan, and I'm going to call your dispatch, and I'm going to call the state patrol. I will call you back. Do not get out of the truck. Do not turn off the truck. Do not open the door for anyone who is not in a uniform. Do you hear me? I hear you. Ray, yeah, I love you. I'm going to be back on this line in 5 minutes. Okay. She hung up. That was about 3 minutes ago. I have been recording this on my own phone since I hung up with her, because I wanted somebody to have it, and I do not entirely trust that what I am seeing now is something that is going to let me get back on the road to talk to anyone in person. I have not seen him out here on the shoulder. I have looked in both mirrors. I have looked through the windshield down the road ahead, and I have looked in the rear view at the road behind. I have looked at the tree line on the right side of the road, where the woods come right up to the fence. Behind my seat there is a sleeper curtain. The sleeper curtain has been closed since I lay down at the TA in Lake Station, and I drew it shut. I have not opened it since. When the cab moved at Lake Station, when I felt the lean against the passenger side, I came forward into the driver's seat through about a 1-inch gap in the curtain, and I have not pulled the curtain wider than that since. I just heard something. I just heard the small flat click that the sleeper compartment door makes when the latch releases. I locked that door at the TA. I locked all 4 doors at the TA. I have not unlocked any of them. The sleeper compartment door does not unlock from inside the sleeper. It only unlocks from outside with a key, or from the driver's compartment with the master switch, and I have not touched the master switch. I am going to keep my eyes on the road ahead. I am not going to turn around. If I turn around, I am going to see whatever is behind me, and I do not want the last thing I do to be seeing it. Diane has not called back yet. There is a weight on the bunk now. I can feel it through the frame of the seat. The cab is rocking very slightly, the way it rocked at the TA. Someone is sitting down on the bunk in the sleeper behind me. The springs in the bunk are old, and they make a particular small noise when they take weight, and they are making that noise right now. I want to say one thing. To whoever ends up listening to this, I do not know if it is Diane or Megan or somebody at the company or somebody at the state patrol or somebody who finds my phone on the shoulder of this road. I want to say one thing, and then I am going to stop talking because I do not want him to hear my voice and know I have been telling somebody. The thing I want to say is this. I do not think he wants anything from me in particular. I do not think this is about me. I think he is on this road every night. I think he is at every stop on this corridor every night. And there are men on the CB right now who have been seeing him for years and have learned not to talk about it. I think tonight I am the one he picked up at, and tomorrow night it will be somebody else, and the night after that somebody else. I think when you drive this corridor long enough at night alone, you eventually come up on his number. I am going to stop talking now. Diane, if this gets to you, I am sorry I did not say it on the first call. I should have said it on the first call. I love you. I love Megan. Tell her I am sorry. He is breathing. I can hear him breathing behind the curtain. It is very quiet and very even, the way a man breathes who is not in a hurry, and it is coming from about 2 feet behind my right shoulder. If you are still here, if you are still listening, subscribe. There is a new one every night, and I am telling you, some of them are real. I have to put the phone down now. He is leaning forward.